Hey, welcome, Facebook. Guys, we have a very special episode of Leveling Up Podcast on this beautiful Thursday morning. It's a thriving Thursday, as always. We have a special guest. His name is Eric Counts. He's been my mentor for, almost 4 years now. I've been part of this amazing community, and he has a wealth of experience in credit. He is a wonderful example of what happens in business when you don't jump the creek. That's something that he always talks about. Making sure that you take the right steps consistently, and then you can build your credibility. And today I really want to dive into credibility in life, in business, and how to build it right and not skip steps, because he's got a model that allows us to really go through and say, hey, anybody can do this if you do it right. You don't skip the steps. You don't go from A to Z. You say, you know what, I'm going to go from A to B to C, and you do the right things consistently. So welcome, everybody. We've got Gilbert James, we've got Valerie, Louise, Chuck, and all you wonderful people on Facebook. Cassiopeia, I don't know exactly how to say your name. I'm so sorry.
Cassiopeia.
Yeah, Cassiopeia. Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah.
So, Eric, tell us a little bit about yourself. I would love to hear your backstory. How did you get into being the chief credit nerd at CreditNerds.com? So awesome.
Well, you know, that is actually a funny story. I was poor, right? That's what happens is you're poor and you look around and you get tired of being poor one day. And I had a friend that was a realtor, and my realtor friend was doing real estate, and you know, he wasn't just a realtor. He was also doing some investing, some properties, some rentals, and he would pay me. You know, he'd say, "Hey, Eric, I need this tile ripped up out of this kitchen in this rental I'm doing. I'll give you $100." You know, and I needed $100. So I was like, "Sure." And then, you know, later on, he'd be like, "Yeah, I made like 50 grand off that flip." And I'm like, "Dude, you paid me $100. Shut your mouth. You know, shut up. I don't even want to know what you made." And one day we were in the car, we were riding around together, and he actually received a phone call from somebody in the credit industry and said, "Hey, I'm looking for people in your area to do sales for my company." And he said, "Well, you know, I'm not really interested, but my friend might be." You know, I was raised in that life of you always just look for the next job, just, you know, get the next paycheck, look for the next job. And I took that phone call, and the guy said, you know, "Hey, would you be interested in the credit industry?" And I'm going to be honest, no, right? Who would be? And but I did need a job. And something that I have always taken on with myself is when I do and start something new, I take it on, you know. And so I started with this credit repair agency as a sales, and man, I dove in and I started learning and listening, and I would read these manuals and books and watch, you know, congressional testimonies, and like I dove in. And it was because I dove in so heavily, I realized that I had taken a job with one of the bad ones. You know, one of the companies that just were ripping people off and just weren't doing what they promised, and they would just make false, you know, guarantees. And what really did it for me one day is they had an employee that they introduced me to. This is our new employee, and he is our retention specialist. And his whole job was to take the complaint phone calls and tell the people that, nope, it's going to be next week, it's going to be next month, don't worry, it's all going to be fine, we still hold our promises, and you just keep on paying that monthly fee, just keep paying. So about 6 months into that job, I quit, and we started trying to do it on our own. And I went to all the people that I had sold to and said, "Hey, I think you got ripped off. The best I can do is try to, you know, I can't give you your money back, I only made $50. And I just tried to give them, you know, what they bought. And before long, we started getting phone calls. "Hey, are you helping people with their credit? Hey, are you the one helping people with their credit?" And I had no business sense. So I'd say, "Yeah." And they'd say, "Can you help me?" And I'd say, "I guess so. I don't have time for that, but I guess." And then one day I got a phone call, and they said, "How much does it cost?" And I said, "What is a fair way? You know, what is a fair, legally compliant way to charge for these services?" And Credit Nerds was born. That was in 2008.
So that was the moment where you're like, oh, this isn't just a cool idea. This isn't just a cool service, but you can actually make money doing this. What was that process like, going from, hey, I'm doing this as a friend or a service, to actually creating some continuity in your life and your business to say, this is a service that people want, that's needed, and that I can actually do a service that people will pay for?
Mhm.
Tell us a little bit more of that thought process.
Um, the thought process there really sprung from yet again another phone call I received. We we didn't have when we started Credit Nerds, we had just over $400 in our bank account,
Mm.
and the reason we had that was because my wife was a waitress and she had worked a double shift the weekend before. Like that was all we had, and uh, we had started helping a few people and we were making a few bucks. And that I don't know if you know that, but there's that point in sometimes people's lives where they make nothing, and then the next thing you know they're making five, six, seven, 800 bucks a week. And I thought we were just top of the world.
Yeah.
Like I was like, dude, we're making it. And it was still just dollars, and something that I understood but I didn't really grasp yet was the credit industry side of it. And then I got this phone call, and I answered my phone, hello, and there were keys jingling. And I was like, hello? And the woman came on, and I had had this client who had left an abusive relationship, very, very physically and emotionally abusive relationship. And she was terrified and she was scared and she didn't have any finances of her own and she didn't have any credit of her own and she didn't have a way to leave. And we had helped her build credit and we had helped her do these things. And she called me one day and she said, do you know what that is? And I said, I don't. And she said, that's the keys to the house. Um, and she said, wow, sorry. She said, I just wanted you to know that my kids and I are going to be safe tonight. That was it for me. I was
Yeah.
like, wow, this is what I'm doing the rest of my life. She didn't say, hey, I just wanted to call and let you know we got the 4 bedroom instead of the 3, or hey, just wanted to let you know I got that new Chevrolet. She called to say my kids and I are going to be safe. And I didn't realize how much your finances and your credit and having those things in order really do allow you to create a lifestyle of safety that you can feel comfortable in.
Wow. Thank you. I think if all our business is doing is making money, it's not much of a business. But when you can
Yeah,
make an impact like that, you can help someone feel safe and actually be safe. I love this is something you've taught me in years past, that cushions save lives. I think that's one of the
cushions.
things uh, that credit is so valuable for. Can you talk to that point a little bit more? Because I
I
want to make sure
can.
that people understand that. I love that.
Absolutely, man. A cushion. So I think about we do when you go ride a motorcycle. Brigham, are you a motorcycle rider?
I'm
I'm
not.
not myself, but we've got friends Scott and all the guys that
Yeah.
that ride the motorcycles. Bob, everybody that does those things. It looks so fun.
Right.
I'm a big old wuss, so I'm scared of the motorcycles. I've ridden a couple of times, but when you go ride a motorcycle, what's it a good idea to do? Put on a helmet.
Well, helmet. Yeah, for
Put
sure.
on a helmet, man. Put on some protective clothing. When you jump in a car, right? Now, I do love my fast cars. I'm a fast car kind of guy. Um, but, when I got a chance to go out and do 175 around the track in Vegas, and you think I wasn't, wearing a helmet and a seatbelt and like we have these protections in place because we all fall,
Hmm.
right? Everybody's gonna fall. And when you fall, it really comes down to, do you have something softening that fall? Do you have a cushion? And whether that's in something physical, like, being protective of your skull, or whether that's something, a little more financial, like being protective of your retirement plans, or being protective of your income, being protective of what is going to happen if you have a bad month in your business. And I see so many businesses fail because 1 or 2 bad months come along. And when the pandemic happened, and I'm seeing people go out of business 4 and 6 weeks in, 6 weeks into the pandemic, and people are going out of business, it was because they didn't have a cushion. They didn't have something sitting there waiting that says, hey, just in case, here's your helmet, here's your seatbelt, here's the airbag, here's the protection, here's that, thick leather jacket that you were wearing that helps you slide, or all of those things. We do those things physically to protect ourselves, but for
Right.
some reason, a large portion of the country just does not do those things financially to protect themselves.
That's such a great point. And one of the things I think is really important with that, guys, is if we don't have that protection, what are we leaving ourselves open to? Like you said, people can go out of business in 6 weeks.
Absolutely.
That's scary to be 6 weeks away from broke.
And guys, I'm not talking about like Jeff's lawn care service, right? I'm not talking about like a guy that just runs it. I'm talking about major businesses, large revenue businesses. I mean, I think, and please don't quote me on this exactly, but it was 6 or 8 weeks or so into the pandemic, and the Cheesecake Factory's filing bankruptcy, missing out on their lease payments on their buildings. Like it's just that fast that, and guys, you're gonna have. Here's what I talk about: if you're gonna ride motorcycles, you're going to lay one down someday. If you drive fast cars, you're going to hit something someday. If you do anything that you do, even if you just walk, if you go for a jog, guess what? You're going to fall down one day. Everybody falls down. And it's not the embarrassment of saying, my business struggled. Guys, my business struggled hard through the pandemic. I was built all around speaking events, right? Think about that. My entire business model was built around going and speaking in front of audiences, and then the pandemic hits. And if we wouldn't have had some pretty significant cushions in place, we would have failed too. But instead, we made it through the pandemic. I never laid off a single employee. I never cut hours. We never missed a bill. We made it. It was hard, but we made it through because we had cushions, financial cushions in place. And without those, man, it is a quick trip to the bottom when you just all revenue stops for a couple of months, and it's tough to recover.
Absolutely. And I think if I can even shift slightly from what this topic is, because I do think that having these cushions are essential. One of the things that you've been able to go from the beginning of not having any credibility in your business, saying I've got $400 in my bank account, to right now having that cushion. Can you talk to us a little bit about that process of building business credit, building your credibility, building your name, and letting others see that you're serious about your business and you're able to generate revenue and make this something worthwhile? Go ahead.
Sure. Um, can I give a personal slash really honest answer to that instead of the
Absolutely.
podcast answer?
Sure.
Learn your business.
Mm.
Learn your business. Um, the biggest thing that I think, in my personal opinion, of a lot of business owners that I see is they do their business, but they don't know their business. And what I mean by that is, guys, we've got to read, we've got to learn, we've got to watch videos, we have to go to events, we have to go to trainings, we have to know our business inside and out. And what really builds credibility, in my personal opinion, is actually being credible. If you are you actually credible, or is it a show that you're putting up to say, oh no, I'm this or I'm that? I don't mind the, I get it, fake it till you make it. I understand the concept of it. But while you're faking it to make it, do everything in your power to stop faking.
Mm.
Whatever your business is, if your business is in the credit industry like mine, then by George, you better understand the FCRA inside and out, and you better understand the FDCPA, and you better really read them and cross-reference them with other laws and understand how they work together, and watch the congressional testimonies and listen to what people are saying in the industry and learn it. If your business is in real estate, learn it. If your business is in drop shipping, learn it. Understand your business and understand how you do what you do. More than just that, you do what you do. How do you do it? How does it work? Why does it work? Why are you the person to make it work? And if the answer is just because I have a logo, then you're going to fall. The answer
Yeah.
has to be, well, because I may not be the best, but close. You know what I mean? I know my business inside and out. And there are people that I go to for credit advice in the world, right? There are people that I know that if I'm questioning something, I would call them. And one day, something that really set it off for me is one of those people called me and asked me a question. Somebody that was like an employee of Equifax had called me and asked me a question about credit. And it was a very in-depth question, don't get me wrong. And they were just like, I was just looking for your thoughts, Eric. And I was like, there it is, right? When other people seek you out,
Mm.
it's because you have something valuable for them. And we humans use each other, guys. That's okay. Use me. That's what I'm here for. I'm here to be used up. And if that allows me, um, if that allows me the ability to create a lot of value in the world, awesome, right? Use me up. And if that's where my value lies, is in is in the stuff that I know. So know your business.
Mm.
Learn.
I love that. My father-in-law, he says, know what you do and do what you know.
Yeah.
And I love how I think it
That was
was,
a way easier way to set it than
yeah,
what I
no, absolutely. And it's so true. We need to know what we do and know our business so well that when someone says, hey, can you do this? You know exactly if that is something you can fulfill and over deliver on or not. And it's okay to say, you know what, that is not part of my business, but here's a referral, or this is part of it. And 100%.
Yep.
Best way to be competent is actually, or to be confident is actually to be competent. And I think actually going and doing the work to know what you do and never stop learning, never stop progressing.
Yep.
That is the business mindset. That's that idea of saying, I'm never going to stop getting better. Because who we talk to as far as Eric Counts today is going to be different than in a month from now because of your experience level, because of the things you go and learn, the people you talk to, those conversations, all of this compounds on each other. So Eric, one of the things that I'm always impressed with about you is how diverse your skill set is. And I'm curious because everybody has their own personality, everyone has their own things, and not everyone shows them. I know that you are a great musician and you like to do a little bit of stand-up. You have some great
Medium musician.
medium musician.
Yeah.
Uh, how do you allow your own personality to resonate with your business so that you don't become a commodity and you can
Mhm.
become uniquely you?
Um, wow, is this therapy,
You're welcome.
Brigham? What a tough, deep question. My answer to that is going to it's going to sound like a cop out answer. Don't try to be you, just be you.
Mm.
It's because if you're trying to just be you, then you're not, right? If you're like, well, I want this to be me. I want this. I want to be like this. My answer is I hate to say I don't try to be me. I just do be me. So I just answer the questions the way that they're presented to me. I do what I like to do. I actually enjoy the helping people. I enjoy the speaking events I get to do. I love doing the different things that I do. And then my second answer to that is when you find something that you want to be you, do it and practice.
Mm.
Practice in your business. By the way, I'm only a good pianist to people that think that they or that don't know how to play the piano. So my joke is people that don't know how to play the piano think that I can, and people that do know how to play the piano know for a fact that I cannot. Uh, because I just can play around on the piano. It sounds like I'm having a good time and we're all singing along or whatever, but it's mostly just chords and learning how to do some basic, basic stuff. But I practice and I sit at my piano probably 30, 45 minutes a day because it relaxes me. But I don't care if it's phone calls you're making, practice them. Practice them over and over and over. You need to know your business and know your process and then practice that stuff. And when you practice different things, you can get good at almost anything. My child, I've got an 18-year-old boy right now, just turned 18 last week,
Wow.
and he came to me between his junior and senior year, and he said, "Dad, I'm going to join the band in school." And I was like, "Buddy, that's not how it works. You don't join it." And he goes, Dad," and he stopped me, and I felt so silly because I realized that I was shutting him down. And he goes, Dad. He goes, "It's not like I'm going to be the best. My friends are in the band and I want to join the band. If I don't make it, I don't make it. If I do, great." And I was like, oh my gosh, that was me. That was my awful parent moment of shutting him down because that's not how it works, or you're not ready, or you're not good. And instead, that little dude spent every day out in the garage practicing. And sure enough, his senior year made made marching band, made concert band. He's in the jazz band because he spent hours out there practicing. And I mean, he probably practiced more this past summer to join the band than half the other kids have practiced the time they've been in band. He was sitting out there 3, 4 hours a day.
Wow.
And sure enough, now he made band.
I love it. And sometimes you have to compress those time frames and say, I'm not necessarily going to be as good at as someone else that has that natural talent, but are you going to put in the energy and effort
Yep.
to have the skill get developed?
Yeah. You may be better than me,
Yeah,
but I'm going to work harder than you.
absolutely. In business, that's so true as well.
Yep.
Like for me, I was not even a little bit comfortable with business and that mindset because I was a theater guy. I
Hmm.
came from the creative world. I love having great conversations and making people laugh and all these fun things with theater. But when I came down to our community, I had to kind of unpack all these different ideas and figure out how I step into them. And it wasn't easy at the beginning because I didn't have any talent there, but I said, I'm willing to learn.
Yeah.
And I came to it with an open hand and saying, hey, you know what? I want to learn, and I'm learning. I'm not done learning. I'm learning right now. I'm in the process. So I'm curious, Eric, what is something that if you had someone that was brand new came to you and they said, hey, what is the advice you can give me as far as a business to be successful? What would you give them as advice to say, go from zero or $400 in the bank account to having a successful business like yourself?
You started with it, and I'll bring it right back to that place. Is don't jump the creek.
Mm,
Um, when you're starting your business, start your business. Treat it like a business. I don't care if you're making 300 bucks a month. Treat it like a business, because 300 bucks a month becomes five, becomes 1,000, becomes 10,000, becomes 100,000. Um, Bob Snyder, who most of us know, Bob has a great story, and mine's not to the level of Bob's yet. I'll be very, very clear. Mine's not to the level, but when you go and you make that first, $100,000 month, your first $100,000 year, great, and then your first $100,000 month, and you're like, whoa. And I had that chance to have my first, $100,000 day one time, and it, it's because you don't skip steps. If you're constantly skipping the steps, then what happens is when you make it to that higher level, the people there, they know that you skipped the steps.
mm,
The people that are at that level, they know when they ask you for certain things, or when they ask to see something, or when they ask you about your P&Ls, and they ask you about your business, or they ask you about something, and you don't have a real solid answer for that. I know it's silly, but think about Shark Tank. You can
mm,
see the ones that they go on there, and they'll ask them a question about their business and they don't know the answer. That's a real quick turnoff for people at a high level. So you need to be understanding, doing your reports, looking at your business each month and going, hey, did I do better this month or last month? Did I do better this day or last week? How is my business doing? Am I projecting up? Am I trending up? Am I trending down? Do I need to make some changes? Have I added in any advertising? What am I doing in my business, and how is that reflecting a change? Because change only comes because you changed something. So I see people going, well, I'm going to change it this year. I'm going to do something different this year. And I go, great. What are you going to do different? I'm not sure yet. And that's okay, right? I'm not sure yet, but I'm going to do different. And then the year will happen. And did anything change this year? Nope, same as last year. And I'm like, well, what did you change? You have to do something different. And the only way you're going to be able to know what to change or where to change is by diving in and knowing your business. So my business advice is understand your business, know what happens, know your processes, know your procedures, know your brand, know who you are, understand consistency. Guys, consistency of message. Your ads need to match how you've got your site set up, needs to match how you talk to, people. It needs to match. You need a consistency of message. And I see that just missing in a lot of places.
I love that. Now, one of the things I love what you brought up was understanding your processes. Your class in our profits was the
Mhm.
thing that helped me improve my systems with short-term rentals more than any of the short-term rental classes combined, because it's that next level of if this happens, then this happens. If this happens, then this happens, and getting
Yeah.
those workflows in place and using the sticky notes. Like
Yeah.
I,
Making the
I'm
toast.
curious. Could you tell us a little bit more about the thought process of why automation is important in
Sure.
your business, and maybe tell us a story a little bit of how you discovered that automation was so important.
So, when I started my business, and like I said, 2008, Stephanie and I had rented this little 15 by 15 office. It was $100 a month. That was our
Mhm.
15 by 15 office. And it was just us. And we had a very low population. Like the town literally has 700 people in it. That's the
Wow.
population of the town that we started in. And I realized right away, early on, that there weren't going to be enough people in my town to support my business, right? That's just not going to be enough. So I started seeking out other towns. I would drive an hour over to this town, drive over here, drive over there, and try to do speaking. And as I would do that, I was I was running around with notebooks, writing down people's information and taking business cards and writing stuff on the back. And I just didn't have a way to say, oh, absolutely, we'd love to help you. Put in your info right here. I didn't have a way to say, fill out this form, go to this site really quickly. Um, and once I started doing that, we started getting way more customers because right there in the room, when I would speak to people, I would say, hey, fill this form out. And then they were filling a form out, but then somebody had to go check that form and somebody had to go log on to see if there were submissions. And then, well, what happens if somebody forgets that? And what happens if somebody doesn't do their job that day? And so instead, I started building into that form. I know this is so basic. Please hear me out. But do remember, this was, 2000, this was 16 years ago. So I started building into that form that it would send me an email every time that somebody filled it out. And then, oh, wait, well, now I want this next thing to happen. I want somebody to get a task to do something. And we started looking for softwares that would do that. And it wasn't, I mean, they weren't easy to find or cheap. And we ended up building a credit repair software. And as I was building it, I kept thinking, well, how much of this work can we get the software to do? How much of the work of the process can we get the computer to do? And I say a lot in my classes and in my trainings that computers aren't smart. They're dumb. Computers are dumb. People are very, very smart. And a computer is only as effective as the person that programmed those processes or programmed that computer. So when we started working, I thought that it was all the computers, and all I need is a software to exist. And then I had one, and it didn't make it any better. And it wasn't until, yet again, I dove in and learned that software top to bottom, and really started building and creating processes and say, well, if they don't respond to this within X number of days, wouldn't it be great if this next thing happened? When that thing happened, wouldn't it be great if the next person in the chain was notified that they had something to do? Wouldn't it be great if they didn't do that within 4 days, it notifies my manager to say, hey, so and so isn't doing their job. You got to check up on this. And what we built was we built in all of these kind of checks and balances of operations where stuff happens. And they finally, if nothing happens and none of this stuff happens, we have a section in our software that we call the black hole. And if nothing changes for a set number of time, then they just fall into this black hole, and that black hole just starts blasting me messages going, hey, this is wrong, this person isn't moving, this person isn't getting their calls, this person isn't, so it's just checks and balances of making sure that it's not, get your memory out of your business.
Ooh,
If a section of your business relies on you remembering, that section is going to struggle.
that's a awesome little soundbite. Get your memory out of your business.
Yeah. Humans suck at memory, guys.
That's so true.
Yep.
So maybe give us one tip on how to get that memory out of our business and into the processes.
Um, Stop trusting. It's gonna do not cut this out of context.
Okay.
Stop trusting yourself to remember.
Mm.
Just own it right away and go, I'm not going to remember. I'm not going to remember to do this. And put somebody whose job it is to remember, right? Or a computer's system in place to remember. And if I've set myself a task, if I set, I got reminders for the podcast today, right? Like you reminded me. Why did you remind me? Well, because you knew that people forget stuff. That's what it is.
Mm.
So you've got reminders in place. That's what I'm telling you is put reminders in place, put event reminders, put, podcast reminders, phone call, touch base. If I've got a customer, wouldn't it be great if we made sure that we called our customer every round of process and just talk to them about their progress so far, talk to them about what's next, talk to them about what to expect, and then make that next thing happen. So I do a training on customer service, and the training is if you really want to give great customer service, the best thing to do is tell your customer exactly what's going to happen and then make that happen.
Mm. It's
Tell them
that.
what's going to happen and then make sure that that's what happens, because you can get over a lot of stuff. People will they'll get over, the wrong conversation. They'll get over mistakes. They'll get over stuff. They will. Businesses aren't perfect, guys. But what doesn't get over, what they won't almost forgive you for, is forgetting about them.
Mm.
If you forget about your customers and forget that they exist and you don't reach out and you don't do the process and you don't do the steps, then they're going to go somewhere else. And then you forget about them and they forget about you.
Forget about it. Yeah, you
Forget
definitely
about it.
want to forget about it. No, you definitely want to make sure that you take that memory out, get it on paper. I think I heard this from you in your class at some point that you need to actually write it down and figure out, is this the most efficient use of this process? Because if we don't write it down, then we screw it up. Yeah, let me see this. Write it down. Love this. These are your notes on your own business.
These are my notes. Yeah.
Your
These are my
system.
notes on my business. I've got this notebook and this one and this one and this one over here. And I write everything down, even if it's just going through and doing a list and making sure that but this person, I need to make sure to do this, I need to do this, I need to do this. When I'm having conversations with people, I just write them down. And that way, when I'm done, I can go drop it into my, like Michelle says, old school style. That's how I'm very tactile when I'm on the phone or when I'm doing something. I write it all down. But the next step is that way, when I'm done with that conversation, I take all of this and put it digitally. Now I go in and add notes. I'm going in and I'm creating the processes that I needed to remind myself to do. But I love writing things down. I think there's a connection between when you write something down and learning it and memorizing it and understanding it. So I am a big fan of writing things down.
Yeah, there's an expression, how jishing buru lanbito in Mandarin, which means if you actually write something down, your memory expands. This
Yeah,
idea that it doesn't matter how faint the ink is, the faintest of ink is better than the brightest memory is the exact translation.
that was a beautiful way to say that. I love how this is a great podcast where I'll say something and then you just say it better
Well,
than me. Like, why am I the guest here? But Brigham, let me ask you a few questions.
you're awesome, Eric. Now, one of the things I also really appreciate about you is your willingness to simplify things. You do this so well I mean, you teach it in all of our different classes, that if a customer is confused, they will not
Hey, stop.
act. They won't do
Yep.
anything. So in your business, could you give us an example or a story of how you discovered that principle of like, oh, a confused customer doesn't act, and help us know what is the messaging or the things that help us understand how to simplify so they can
I will tell you how I'm going to answer this question is with probably my second or third favorite email that our business sends.
okay.
I've got a couple of really fun ones that we like to send that are special use case, but we would realize that we would start a customer and it would be going. And in the credit repair process, there's times that you just have to wait. There's nothing else to do, right? There's just nothing else to do. So around 2 weeks in between when we would file disputes and then the 30 days that it takes to get responses, a couple of weeks in, we'd start getting phone calls and people were, hey, nothing's happening. What's going on? And we realized that, well, they just weren't, I don't want to say they weren't listening, but they weren't, right? When we would say the process is going to be 30 days, nothing's going to happen. I need you to be aware that nothing is going to happen. And they just wouldn't hear it. So we started sending an email out at 14 days after somebody's going through our process. We send an email out that says, "Hey, Brigham, just wanted to reach out and say hi. You're in the middle of your dispute period. There's nothing left to do but wait another couple of weeks, but we just wanted to stay in touch." That email alone changed people's perceptions. And now, emails, and of course, that was email days, but now emails and texts and Facebook messages and Messenger and those types of things.
Mm.
Now it's, can I just remind them that they're okay? Make them feel safe. Make them feel comfortable and confident in your business, that you know what you're doing, and they will relax enough to think that, okay, I've got that covered. But if you don't make sure that they are understanding as best as possible what the process is, then they're going to be confused. They're going to be upset. They're going to want to complain. So the answer is transparency and honesty, and just say like, hey, this is what's going to happen. Over the next 30 days, it's going to feel like nothing's going on. But just know that what we're doing is we've got a legal requirement to wait 30 days for those creditors to respond. During that period, I'll reach out to you a couple of times to let you know that we're good, but there's nothing. And once we started explaining exactly what to expect to the customer, then they let their guard down a little bit. They would calm. They would feel like, you know what? Okay, I've got that covered.
I love it. And that message was not complicated, but it changed everything as far as your
Yep.
customer service during that 30-day period. I think
Yep.
that's a great example. Thank you
It
so much.
says the silliness of the email. It says, there's nothing left to do but wait. We just wanted to say hi. So dot, 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 hi. And it says, and it says, we just want to keep in touch. Don't make it awkward. Just
I love it.
silliness, because that's our company brand. Is we don't want to. I don't want to take it quite so serious. You're already in a stressful situation with struggling with credit or finances or money to starting your business. It already is a little of a struggle, right? So we want to try to calm that down a little bit and make it a little bit more fun of a process.
I think that's one way that you tie in your personality and your branding into this.
Yeah.
That was a great example. It doesn't have to be over the top crazy things that you're doing. It can be as simple as that little email that Eric sent. I love
Yep.
that. Thank you. One of the other things I think would be really interesting to talk about is, as you have developed into who you are today, what is maybe one book or one class or one thing that you have put yourself through to be able to say, I'm different now because of that experience? Do you have a book or an idea that you'd like to share with our group? Say, hey, if you do this as well, you may have similar results.
Um, Probably. I read a book. I read this book called, I think, gosh, I think it's called Why Clients Buy, but it might be How Clients Buy, but I think it's Why Clients Buy. And it was a solid book, but in it, it had this little section, and they didn't give this little section what it deserved. You know what I mean? Like I learned this, but I learned that there are 7 buying elements
Yeah.
that every person has to have. And if they have those things, that they will buy. And I started looking through my business and realizing, are we providing these 7 elements to a customer? And those elements are awareness. They need to be aware that your business exists. They need to have an interest in something that you do. They need to understand your business. And that's a big one. They need to understand, right? They need to have belief, trust. They need to have an ability to make the purchase, and they need readiness. They need to be ready to make the purchase. And what I started realizing was I didn't have those elements in place in a couple of sections in my business. And you absolutely have to. If they don't know you exist, they can't buy. If they're not interested in what you do, they won't buy. But the next one is, if they don't really understand how you help them, they won't buy. They need to know exactly what you do. And when you're in a service-based industry, especially, you feel like, well, if I tell them exactly what I do, then they'll just not use me. They'll steal, they'll take my ideas. Guys, that's not that's not the world, man. People don't have time to do everything for themselves. when you show them how good you are at something, and then you say, and here's what we charge for that. Some people mow their own lawn. Some people pay somebody to do it for them. Some people clean their own house. Some people pay people to do it for them. Some people re-roof their house if they know, but most people are going to pay somebody to do it for them. So when you get really good at what you do, my suggestion to you is tell people exactly how you do it. Tell them all the intricacies. Tell them how it works. Tell them how you learned. Tell them everything. And then they go, yeah, I think I'll pay. And wait, you only charge for success? Yeah, we only charge for success. Then why would I go anywhere else? I'm going to use you.
That's awesome. And that comes back to really knowing your business and having that abundance mindset of saying, I'm not just going to do it in whole. I'm not going to just do it by myself. I'm going to let other people know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and how I'm doing it. And the more comfortable they are with understanding your level of competency, the easier it is for them to say, you know what, I will save that time frame that would have taken for me to learn that thing and pay an expert that already has done the work.
Absolutely.
Now,
Yeah,
Eric,
most people aren't looking to save $500 or $600 to spend hours and hours and hours learning something. That's not a good fair trade-off. They go, wait, I don't want to spend hours and hours and hours doing that thing.
Yeah. And we don't actually have the bandwidth to become an expert in every single thing. And some people don't even have the desire to become an expert in those things. So you find someone that's competent and they are letting you know confidently that you can invest in what their service is.
Yeah.
It's a no-brainer.
And then I would say who, not how.
Who? Oh, I love that.
Yeah,
do you want to talk more to that point? Who, not how? Because I think that's a great topic.
I love it as a business owner because I want to be your who, right? I want to be, when you say, hey, I need business funding. Great, CreditNerds. You know what? I need credit repair. Great, CreditNerds. I want to be your who. But when you're in business or as a consumer, but when you're in business, I have to figure out who can do that, who can make that thing happen. Sometimes for me, the who is a computer, right? I can use automation. Sometimes the who is, is an individual.
Yeah.
I have to, one example is if you're going to be disputing for credit or anything like that, you want to make sure to always dispute by mail. And I want you to hand write the envelopes. It's a little bit of a silly thing, but the bureaus, when they see labels on the envelopes, they tend to think that it comes from a credit repair agency, and they have the ability to send you out a special letter. And to get over that and to skip that, you handwrite the envelopes. But that means I have to am I going to sit and handwrite envelopes all day? No, I got somebody to do that, right? Somebody that has a limited skill set in this industry. I can say, hey, but you still have a purpose here. I need you to handwrite 500 envelopes because we've got to send them out. I need you to do these smaller, intricate tasks that are so important to the business. And then the business owner needs to remember that those are important tasks. That's not a slave, that's an employee, and they're of value to you. And you make sure to compensate them, because if you're constantly turning over employees, guys, if your thing is you're constantly having to find new people, it's your fault. It's your fault. If you take out my daughter, who started working with us a few years ago, my daughter is 22, she turned 18 or 19, and she started working with us. But if you take her out, I've not hired an employee in 7 years. Our newest employee is Ariel, and she's Ariel and Tabitha, and they've both been with us for 7 years. That's our newest employee.
That's allowing them to feel comfortable and supported and validated.
Yep.
And that their job means something.
Yeah. And that they are not their job. They're a person, and their job, our company understands that your job comes second to your kid's doctor's appointment. I don't need all of these notes, and I don't need all of these, like there's a silly video going around. I'm a millennial manager, and I don't care why you took off. Did you get your job done? The video's better, but that's us. I'm like, I don't care why you took off. Did you get your work done? Can you get your work done? Yeah, I can come in a little early tomorrow, or sounds great then. What does that have to do with me? I don't care where you do your job. I don't care really when you do your job. I just care that you did your job. And what that makes is it makes for people that, yeah, they may see a job down the road that pays them $1 an hour more, but people don't leave for $1, buddy. They don't leave your company for $1 more. They leave your company for either A, their passion. We had an employee that left, and we gave them, Stephanie and I gave them a, not a huge, but $1,000 quitting bonus. We gave them $1,000 quitting bonus because they were going to start their own company, and I was proud of them. That was Randy. I don't know if anybody remembers Randy that used to work with us. We adore Randy. But Randy wanted started his own business. People leave stress and they leave struggle and they leave not feeling comfortable and not feeling confident. So if you'll just make sure that your employees know exactly what's expected of them,
Mm.
exactly what's okay and what's not okay, then they'll make the choice of, do I feel comfortable here? And if they do, they'll stay a very, very long time. If they don't feel comfortable, then they'll leave.
So, because you're such a great systems and process guy, there's something in your class that always pops up like, can you read and do you follow directions? I
Yep.
think that is such a
Since
great.
since recording my class, I have made one change.
Oh, let's go. Go ahead.
The wording used to be, I always ask two questions. Can you read and can you follow directions? I don't mean to be rude, but do you have good high quality reading skills? Because that is something that you're going to need here. No disrespect. I know people struggle, but here I need you to have really good high quality reading skills. That's my big ask. Can you read? Can you follow directions? I've changed it. Will you read? Will you follow directions?
That's a good distinction.
Because a lot of times they can do it, but just won't. So it's, will you read the directions? Because I've taken the time to systemize everything and tell you exactly how to do it in your tasks and in our SOPs and in the, when somebody gets tasked to do something, there's a specific set of steps that they follow. And if they will follow those steps, they'll be able to do it. Even as a brand new employee early on, we use a lot of scripts. We use a lot of, like, don't expect your people to be experts in what you are. Expect them to be able to read and understand and follow directions. That's it. Otherwise, why don't you pay them the big bucks and let them be the owner? If they are the owner, then they should deserve to make what the owner makes. I don't expect my employees to be the owner. I expect them to be employees, which means my business comes second to them. If you're expecting your employees to make your business be their top priority, you are sorely, sorely mistaken, my friend. They do not care about your business. They care about their families.
And if you care about their families and them personally as well, then they will start to attach themselves to that business
Yes,
as long as it helps them serve
absolutely.
their goals and dreams.
Absolutely.
So one of the other ideas that I think would be really helpful for our audience here is, as you are creating your standard operating procedures, how do you make sure that it doesn't get muddy? You recognize where the kinks are and some of those things that are broken. When you have a break in your system, how do you notice it so that it doesn't become, a flood of horrible things happening?
I have a very quick and specific answer. You ask your employees which part of their job they dislike the most.
Yeah, that's a great.
And you make sure that they feel safe. Hey, listen, I'm trying to fix stuff around here. I'm trying to fix problems around here. I'm not asking you, I'm not trying to get you in trouble. I'm saying, what part do you hate doing the most? Because the part that they hate doing the most, you'll find, is something that's a little broken or it's confusing or it doesn't work quite the way that you would expect. And just remember that you may have been, the designer of all of this, but your employees are the people doing it. Your employees are the people doing it. So if it's your business and you're a solopreneur, then I want you to write down, which parts do you hate doing the most? What is the part that you don't look forward to? And that's where you'll find your breaks.
I love that. And how did you discover that? Because I think that's wisdom talking. That's not just theory, guys. That is definitely wisdom talking. How'd you discover
What we
that?
did, we actually, a while back, and this was 3 or 4 years ago, you know what, maybe 5. It was not today. That's when it was. This was several years back. But we actually brought in some cameras, little GoPros in our office, and we told everybody, listen, nobody's in trouble. We're trying to fix stuff. And we put cameras at almost every station. And what we looked for was, we looked for when people were, because we have, I hate to say unlimited breaks, but if somebody needs to stand up and take a breather, go to the break room. If somebody needs to go to, like, you don't have to clock out, right? Like it's not where we live. But what we would realize is that when people were doing the same types of job, that's when they would, all right, and they would get up and they would take a break, or they would, their face would get real frustrated.
Mm.
Or so all we were doing was tracking the person with consent, mind you. Everybody had knew that we were putting some cameras in, and we would really just watch these and go, when are people getting frustrated? When are people struggling? What processes are taking the longest? And one of those things right now is there's some data. We switched to data furniture, and the data has to be hand entered. And needless to say, everybody hates it. Of course they hate it. Hand entering data, are you kidding me? So what I'm working with my developers literally today is creating a automation to bring that data in automatically, because if I can have them click a button and pull that data in, now they go, oh, no problem. I'll get that data put in right away. But having to do all of this, why are they doing it? Not because it's the work. They know they're going to make mistakes. They're human beings. You ever typed something, you're going to make a mistake. You're going to accidentally hit a button wrong. You're going to accidentally hit the wrong number. You're going to accidentally maybe put something in the wrong field, because we're human beings, and they know that. And now the stress level of their job goes up, because not only do they know they're going to make mistakes, they're trying extra hard not to make mistakes. And you only have so much mental fortitude each day.
Mm.
You notice how, like, if you have a really, really hard morning, you're like, the end of the day, you're like, I'm done. I'm done today. I can't do any more.
Yeah.
Everybody has those things. So if I can get rid of little stressors, if I can get rid of that data entry, if I can get rid of this thing needing to happen, if I can get rid of these little pieces and automate those, then my employees don't have to stress over that. And now they're much more likely to be on the top of their game with a phone call, or they're much more likely to give better customer service, because at the end of the day, we're all humans.
Yeah. And I think that's really unique. You give that visual of you only have so much bandwidth.
Yeah.
And if we can have them utilize their bandwidth, or utilize our bandwidth doing things that are the most highly valuable in our business, the business will grow, it'll thrive. Whereas if it's always hitched on something that is annoying and frustrating, like data entry, that you're going to make mistakes, man, I can just imagine how frustrating that is. It's a great discovery,
And
though.
people leave frustration. Your employees leave frustration, they leave stress, they
Mm.
leave confusion, they leave a lack of confidence, because who wants to feel like an idiot all day? Nobody. So don't make your employees feel like idiots. Make them feel like they really know what they're doing. And the only way to do that is to tell them exactly what to do.
Yeah. You tell them what to do, and then after they do it, you're like, did you do it? Great.
Good job.
Good job.
And and validation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's huge. Sometimes that you'll recognize that people will write down a checklist item so that they can check it.
Yep.
That's it. Make the list, check.
I wish that one's on the wall, but I got a whole board up here. I write a lot of lists. I am a list person for sure. The ADHD kicks in. If I don't have a list, I've probably, if you're watching this podcast and you know me and we've interacted, I have probably forgotten to call you. I've probably, if it's just me, I'm a forgetter. So I do everything I can to be aware of that.
Mm.
And, if that's one more final little point here, is be aware not only of what you're great at, but be a really good understanding, or have a really good understanding of what you're bad at. And when you understand what you're bad at, you know where to put your focus and go, hey, I'm bad at this. Stephanie's going to handle that. I'm bad at this. Karen's going to handle that. I'm bad at this. Randy's going to handle that. So understand what you're good at and understand what you're bad at. And when you're bad at it, either A, get better at it, or B, give that to somebody else to do.
I think that's true. So you live in your genius zone,
Yep.
right? This thing where we have to be the best at everything, it's really toxic to a business growing.
Yeah.
Because there are things that you will be able to do better than anybody else. And then there's some things that if somebody else can come in and do it 40 or 50% as good as you, if you have 2 or 3 people doing that, now they're suddenly doing the work better than you could.
Absolutely.
And that's something that hiring new employees, how did you discover when to hire a new employee? Because I mean, at some point there's like is it is it worth getting that new employee and taking some of that stress off myself, or am I doing this too early? How do you balance that?
That's something that I do struggle with as well. Um, I'm really bad at letting someone go.
Yeah.
Having to fire somebody is very difficult for me. I hired a person to fire people. You know what I mean? Like I have that's what Karen, my office manager Karen, that's her job. That's a struggle that I have as well. Is really when to focus on hiring. And my answer it from my learning phase. I just want to for our listeners, I just want you guys to hear that I'm pretty confident about those other answers. This is a place where I struggle a little bit as well. But my answer for me is I seek out that info from my employees.
Hmm.
Do you have everything that you need to do your job, or is it time? Or do you need help? And we ask people if you're not getting your job done, if you're not getting your job done, if you're not finishing your task list every day, there's only two reasons. And number one is you have too many tasks, right? Number one is you have too many tasks. And number two is you're just not doing the work.
Hmm.
So either A, you got to fire somebody for not doing enough their job and replace them, or B, you need another person. And right now, I've got a person that came to us and they said, I'm just not keeping up, and I feel like it's me, and I'm always behind on my tasks, and what do I do? And our answer was, you know what? I'm going to get those tasks covered for the next week. We gave her the week off. She'll still get paid. She's got a paid week off. And I said, I need you to reset. I need you to rest. And I need you to come back next week and tell me, was it you or was it the tasks? And if it was the tasks, let's get you some help. And if it was you and you just needed a rest, man, you're a human. Sometimes humans need rest. I saw Jared ask, what happens when you need to fire the person that does the firing? Man, I'm going to tell you right now, I can't fire Karen, dude. Karen will fire me first. Karen's been with us for 11, a little over 11 years now. And man, you are right. What would happen? That would be a major blow to our business because she is ingrained at the level of very, very difficult to replace.
Yeah. Well, I think that is true. When you have employees that have been there for years, not just months, and they've become ingrained with your customer service, they've become part of your business brand and your model. It's really hard to let people like that go, even if
And
they
you
go and
need to
follow their
compensate
passions,
them,
right? Like that.
pay
That's
them.
yeah,
You want to ease people's stress, guys? Pay them. They have to have a job. They know they have to have a job. Everybody pretty much has to create income.
yeah,
Pay them. Pay them a couple of dollars more than the person down the street's going to pay them. And when you do that, you'll keep them a long time,
yeah.
a long, long time.
That's a great point. Compensation is a huge key to making sure you keep
Yep.
those employees wanting to come back.
Yeah.
So
We know the silly joke about, and it's a very corporate thing, but oh, it's Christmas and we gave everybody a turkey. They already had a turkey, dude. They want a bonus. They want money. They want, like, well, how do I really motivate my employees? It's money. Give them money. They want money. That's what they want. They don't want a pizza party. They want money. They want you to pay them $1 more. Give them $1 raise, right?
love it.
They want $1 raise. They want a $2 raise. They want something like that. So when you give them a little bit of compensation and actually make them feel like they're worth something to you, then like I said, they'll stay forever.
I love it. Here's another thing that I think is awesome about you, Eric. You validate your people as well. You don't take the credit for everything, which is
Mm-mm.
amazing. You say, hey, here's where credit's due. Like Karen, she's,
Yep.
she's awesome. She's great at customer service. She lets you feel comfortable on the phone. I've talked to her multiple times. And I'm curious, how did you discover that superpower of being able to notice and give adulation and really compliment people when they do a great job? How do you develop that?
If you've taken our profits classes or if you've taken any of the drive stuff, um, my drive, for those of you that know, is I'm a uh, validator intellectual. And a lot of times your primary drive, for me as validator, is why you do stuff. And your secondary drive, which for me is intellectual, is how I do stuff. So I do a lot of what I do because I like being told I'm pretty and smart. That's and you just start to own stuff. I didn't want to be a validator at first. I was like, come on. I just want people to be nice to me and tell me that I did a good job. But you look back through my life, and that's been a lot of what I've been on the stage since I was 12. And I'm just always, hey, mom, look at me. Right. So I've always wanted that validation.
Mm.
And I get that through systems, building, learning, helping through my intellectual side. And part of being a validator is just, so I hate to say I didn't learn this, but I just always knew what I would have wanted, which is somebody to tell me I'm doing a good job and somebody to have my back, and then just pass that on to the people around me. One thing you don't find, like, here's something you're not going to find Eric Counts doing, is talking trash about somebody behind their back. It's it's just not what we do. It's not what we do. So instead, you focus on, if somebody's not somebody I don't like, well, then we just don't talk about that person.
Yeah.
That person just doesn't exist. And instead, I focus on what I do like, right? I focus on what I do want to tell people and what I do want to share with them. So with my employees, I focus very heavily on what they're doing right, because when they do something wrong and I say, hey, I would have handled this different, they go, oh, okay, because they know that that's the one-off.
Mm.
If the only thing you ever tell them is that they're doing bad, you're doing bad. And then a week later, you're doing bad. A week later, you did something bad. And that's the only thing you tell them. Then eventually the week in between goes away and all they feel is bad, bad, bad. I'm a screw up. I messed it up. I'm not doing a good job. You know what? I'm not valued here. I'm going to go somewhere else. But if instead it's like, hey, great job on that. It takes 2 seconds. Hey, great job on that. Oh, way to go. Hey, we got, you had 7 signups today. Great job. Way to go. Then it's constantly good. So when something bad does happen, it's actually kind of jarring. And they go, oh, what did I do? And I'm like, yeah, you did this. And I'd really have handled it this other way. And they go, you got it. Because tomorrow they know that it's going to be back to what they're good at. Hey, great job. So validate your employees and compensate your employees.
I love that. And that's something that I'm not a natural validator. So it's something that I love hearing how you came up with that idea. And then it just, if I was going to be treated like that, that's how I could treat other people.
Yep.
It goes back to that platinum rule that Woody talks about. It's not how do I want to be treated, it's how do they want to be treated.
Yeah.
It's really understanding the people that we deal with and communicating them in a way that they want to be communicated with.
Yeah. Brigham, you're muted for just a second.
Oh, there we go. Sorry.
There you go.
I don't know how I hit the mute button, but if you could give us one last story or piece of advice that you're like, man, this is the reason why behind your company, why you do what you do. Is there a driving force, or is there something that you're like, this is my big share goal? Would you mind sharing that with us and help us understand what keeps you coming out? What keeps you going and doing these challenging things in your business? Because you stick with it through thick and thin, even through COVID. You're like, man, I had the cushion, but without that why, that driven purpose behind what you do, we could give up so easily. We could quit. So what keeps you going? What keeps you moving forward?
This is gonna be my worst answer. You ended on the worst one.
Oh, shoot. Well, maybe I'll have to ask you one more.
The truth is, I am an internal validator, and I don't want to let my family down. I don't want to let others around me down, and I don't want to fail.
Yeah.
And because a lot of it is, and guys, own the things that you don't like too. I would love to say, oh, it's because of this other thing, right? I would love it. Oh, I just have this major drive for this. The truth is I don't want to fail.
Yeah.
I don't want to fail. I don't care what it is. I don't want to fail. I want to learn how to do that thing, and I'll do the work that it takes to learn how to do that thing. And then I want to make that happen. And I don't want to fail. It is somewhat of a personal, I just don't want to fail. And the only way to do that is to do all the steps that it takes.
I love it. To do all the steps in the right order, and then don't jump the creek.
Don't jump the creek.
I love that. That's such a simple visual, and it's so true. And thank you so much. I don't want to fail. I don't want you to fail. We don't want anybody to fail, really. You think about it.
Absolutely.
The more we surround ourselves with people that are successful and on that path of progression, the more we get that energy and that excitement to say, you know what, we're going to keep going. We're going to keep doing what we need to do. We're going to build the bridges that need to be built to go from where we are to where we want to be, to create those dreams.
Yep.
So any final words, Eric, before we sign off? Because I'm so grateful to have you on today. You're pretty and you're awesome.
Yes. That's all I was looking for.
No. You're funny, man. And I'm just so grateful to have you on today. It was a great opportunity to dive in a little bit more into your business. Yeah. Any final ideas or thoughts that you're like, man, this is something I wanted to share. Didn't get asked that question yet. Go ahead.
Spend more time thinking. When we have those nights where you're laying there and we're in those existential dread and I'm a failure, we all have those, by the way. Everybody has those, right?
Oh yeah.
When you're in that moment and you're thinking, oh, I'm a failure, or I'm this, or I'm that, instead of thinking about how you are that thing, how do I not be that thing then? So I just switched that mindset over, and I try not to live in super the new agey of mindset and all that, but it is true, right? Because you have to control your thoughts, because what you focus on becomes. And if I'm going to focus on being a failure, then I'm going to be one. So when I'm having that moment of, oh gosh, I'm struggling, I don't think about, well, I'm struggling. Oh man, I'm struggling. I immediately turn that thought into, well, why am I struggling, and what could I do different to not be struggling? And guys, so many of us are good at figuring out what we should do different, but then not acting. Here's what I'm going to leave you with. And I'm going to talk directly to the camera for a second. You know something that you should be doing in your business that you are not doing. You're uncomfortable with it, or you're maybe not quite fully understanding how to do it just yet, and you're not taking the time to learn it. You know something in your business that you are supposed to be doing different or better that you haven't acted on yet. Do that thing.
Man, that is so true. What's the big domino? What's the thing that you know already? Because you've had those little pings in the back of your head saying, oh, you should do this, you should do this, you should do this. And then you should all over yourself, right?
Exactly.
Should, SHOULD. But guys, it's so true. We have those inclinations because we're smarter than we give ourselves credit for at times.
Absolutely.
We actually think through those problems. I had a mission president brought this up with me. He's like, if you have a temptation or there's something that you're like, oh, I really want to do this, you did not just think, what would happen if I did that? You could also think, what would happen if I didn't do that? And then you can say, let's go all the way through the consequences. If we did this, here's the consequences. Now, what do those consequences look like? We can think through a lot of those choices before we even do them.
Yep.
And that's the value that Eric just shared there. What if you did something that would change your whole business? Like those little email, hey, just keeping in touch with you. Want to say hi, ... hi.
People, there's and I saw this on a Facebook meme. So,
I love it.
Okay. But we look and we think about like time travel and we go back, right? They think, oh, I could go back in time and I could change this little thing and it would completely change my life, right? And we all know that to be true, that the concept of the butterfly effect, one little thing in the past could completely change your life. But nobody will sit here today and go, you know what? Today may be the day of the one little change. So why don't you just make today be the past? Make that one little change and think about how big that one little thing that you chose to do today could have been for you. So imagine 10 years from now when you look back and go, man, I'm so glad I did that one little thing because that's what got me where I'm at. Why is it that we're so quick to think about going in the past? Yeah. Today could branch your life to just as easy.
Love it. You just hot tub time machined us. That's so good. Back to the future. And this is that power of thinking. You think all the way through into the future. What if today was the day? Yeah. And then make it today the day. I love it. Well, Eric, thank you so much for your time, your energy, your effort into pouring into our community. Love you with bottom of the heart. So grateful to have you on today. And guys, thank you for being on, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. God bless everybody.